Okay, here we are. Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to ApprenticeSIP. It's great to see you all. I'm Luther Jackson, a workforce consultant and the ApprenticeSIP co-organizer. Really excited about today's program. As we know, California has huge goals for apprenticeship growth over the next 5 years, going from about 100,000 where we are now to 500,000 by 2029. And we at ApprenticeSIP think that the really key to victory for getting to those numbers is setting up diverse regional networks. We think they're going to play a huge role in the future. So today's speakers are including our own Orrian Willis, representing Northern California Apprenticeship Network, and Alex Hussain from the Southern California Apprenticeship Network, are going to provide some candid insights about their organization and how things are going, and share some of their triumphs and challenges. So Alex and Orrian will start out with just some background and context information, and then they'll answer your questions. And of course, our goal always at ApprenticeSIP is to get into a dialogue. So we hope you're ready to chat and learn and share with them. I'll wrap us up around 5:25, and you can be on your way. The only ground rule I would say is that please use the raised hand function to be recognized, and I'll be happy to recognize you. And why don't we start out with just very brief introductions, name, title, and affiliation. Alex, I'll start with you.
Sounds great. Thanks, Luther. Yeah, Alex Hussain, Program Director at NCAN, the Southern California Apprenticeship Network. Glad to be here with you all.
Great to see you. Orrian.
Yeah, Orrian Willis, City and County of San Francisco, ApprenticeSIP co-founder. Great to see you all. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Temple.
No title, but just a member and making sure that you guys are honest, and also provide feedback when I can.
we need that. Thank you. Joelle.
Hi, everyone. I'm Joelle Hansen. I'm the Director of Workforce Development and Grants here at Metropolitan Education. We're the largest regional occupation training center in Northern California. Happy to be here.
Great. Good to see you. Deborah.
Deborah Shepard with the South Bay Workforce Investment Board, and I'm in the Special Projects Department focusing on apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship.
Hi, Carl.
I'm Carl Cimino. I'm the retired Director of Training for the Pipe Trades Training Center, was the apprenticeship program for plumbers, steam fitters, and heating and air conditioning mechanics in San Jose for Local 393.
Thanks, Carl. Mark.
I'm Mark Martin. I'm the Regional Director for Manufacturing for the Bay Area Community Colleges.
Good to see you, Mark. Nitran.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nitran, Employment Development Coordinator at Calbright College.
Hi, and Sarah.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Rivas. I'm also an Employment Development Coordinator from Calbright College.
Welcome. And who is Firefly's note taker?
I think it's like an AI bot that records the narrative from this meeting.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, let's get started. Orrian and Alex, the stage is yours.
Wait, I'm curious, who turned the Fireflies on if it wasn't one of the ones who organized the meeting?
I think people can send their Fireflies like AI bot to a meeting to listen to a meeting, take transcribe notes. Yeah.
Ah, okay. Didn't realize that. All right, thanks.
Yeah, like if you accept a meeting and you have this connected to your calendar, it'll go and attend the meetings for you and then send you that transcript. So, but that's all right. We're recording anyway. So
I said this is a great place to learn. So there's my lesson for the day. Okay, Alex and Orrian, go ahead.
Great. Well, I guess I can kind of start a little bit, and then Alex, you want to cover the scan stuff. So yeah, just real quickly. So in 2017, Aon, Accenture, and Zurich got together with the mayor of Chicago, as well as their community college system, and started the first apprentice network of its kind around Chicagoland. And it was really, really successful. And it's since grown to, more than 100 companies, I believe, and, a few thousand apprentices, and all sorts of new and emerging sectors have kind of graduated from the programs. They've aggregated funding and resources, and then, you know, for whatever wonderful reason, they decided to take the model into other parts of the country. So they launched a couple of other ones before reaching out to some of us in Northern California back in 2020 and said, hey, we want to bring this model to the area. We heard you guys have some good stuff going. This actually overlaps with some of the work that Luther was doing on Apprenticeship Bay Area, which was funded by an Irvine grant, doing some landscape analysis around why tech companies might participate in apprenticeships and what their kind of reservations are. That also dovetailed with the Silicon Valley Apprenticeship Consortium, which was going at the time. That got folded into some work that the Bay Area Council was leading. So long story short, between the Bay Area Council and this old apprenticeship consortium, the work that we were doing at the workforce board, so Apprenticeship Bay Area, which was NOVA, OEWD, where I work, and some others, as well as the Bay Area Community Colleges Consortium, and then the industry leaders being AON and Accenture. We launched the NCAN in April of 2021 to try to mirror what they were doing in Chicago and really align ourselves with the goals of the governor, which were this road to 500K apprentices by 2029. When we launched, we had a number of people from Southern California participating in our meetings, namely Jorge Marquez from Robert Half. He'd actually fly up to our meetings. And so, you know, we said, Jorge, you've got a ton of good stuff happening down south. All of the you know, the right players to do your own network. And that's when I think, along with the South Bay Wib and Launch and Charles Hinkles and everyone started talking about, you know, doing a Southern California version. So I'll hand it over to Alex to talk a little bit about the scan, and then, you know, the two of us can cover kind of the infrastructure and goals and, you know, next steps for our networks.
Yeah, absolutely. So in about September, maybe October of 2022, Jorge started gathering some people in LA County area looking to start the Southern California version, gathered some folks, got some funding from the Irvine Foundation to get it started. And the South Bay Workforce Investment Board offered to be the fiscal sponsor to be able to house the project initiative. And they're obviously amazing in the space, in the field of apprenticeship when it comes to a workforce board presence and example there. So yeah, the SCAN network has just grown ever since. They had their first kickoff meeting in the spring of 2023. We had our full kickoff meeting in the fall of 2023. I got brought on a couple weeks before the kickoff meeting, which was super fun timing to get brought on before a big launch event. But yeah, we're really glad and fortunate to have at this point over 500 members who have joined SCAN as members on our roster, from providers and CBOs, apprenticeship intermediaries, workforce government agencies, any and all types of apprenticeship stakeholders have been joining. And we're hosting monthly meetings to gather people and really trying to hone in on how do we provide the most value to our members, and how do we change systems and help to streamline things that are already in place to expand apprenticeship opportunities throughout Southern California for us, really with the North Star and heart of that work being to connect marginalized communities to quality career opportunities through apprenticeship. So that's sort of the goal and what we're up to. So that's sort of the history and where we're at now.
Yeah, thank you. And Alex brings just such a unique lens to the work of the network, you know, considering his background working in tech, and just brings a lot of energy and organization to the network that, you know, I can tell you is probably missing from NCAN. So SCAN is lucky to have acquired him. But yeah, I think, you know, we can talk a little bit more about the structure of the network if it's useful to you all, and then just kind of do more of a dialogue. And I know Luther has a couple of prompts for us, but I imagine you all do too. So Luther, where do you want us to go from here?
Well, one of the things we talked about was, to me, I mean, the idea of collaboration and networks always sounds great, but sometimes there are challenges. There are reasons why they don't pop up everywhere. So I just want to know, what some of the challenges you're seeing and kind of getting everybody to the table, and what are some of your triumphs? What's your secret sauce to kind of keep going?
I'll take an attempt there. So, I mean, big picture, and it's funny, Luther and I have some shared metaphors and analogies here. So I'll drop a few. But what I see in the apprenticeship space, and even just in the American workforce system, is that it functions pretty much like the Wild West. Like, you only know who you run into or what opportunities you run into. There's very little convenings or aggregated spaces. And so what we've been trying to do is essentially to become like a regional airport that would be a central convening space for all different types of stakeholders. So all the different airline companies could all come together, all the different vendors, TSA could have their role, and there's just a clear lane for job seekers to go to one place and then be able to be routed through the process in a streamlined way. So that is the goal, is for us just to be the stage, not to be one of those actors, but to be the place that everyone comes together. What we've seen so far is that obviously across apprenticeship, the biggest missing piece to be able to scale is employer presence and wanting to hire more apprentices. So we have set up a number of teams based on, we basically reverse engineer, what does an inclusive apprenticeship program look like? Okay, you got to have at least one employer, you got to have at least one training provider, and you got to have probably at least one support service provider that's either recruiting from marginalized communities or is helping to provide wraparound support services. And so we built teams around those entity types. So we have an employer engagement team, we have an education training provider team, we have a support service provider team. We also have a program development team, because it seems that there's a lot of them are funded by DOL, but apprenticeship intermediaries who have funding to provide free consulting and guidance to organizations. So that's a number of the connections that we make as well. And then the fifth team that we've launched recently has been the apprenticeship funding team, trying to gather all of the available opportunities. And even one of the projects we're trying to get out the door this month, probably next month, is going to be like a funding intake form. So organizations and apprenticeship programs who say, hey, I'd like funding, but I don't know where to start. We have an intake form for them and do some guidance and handholding for them. So what we've found is that, I mean, already foundations have connected with groups and funded grantees through our network. Support service providers have gotten connected with apprenticeship programs and gotten, let's say, folks who are experiencing homelessness connected to the job opportunities. There's been a lot of complementary partnerships that are taking place so far, unintentionally and from some intentional introductions that we're making. But because everyone's used to playing in the Wild West, people aren't necessarily used to thinking, oh, I'm gonna like play nice with others, or there's just a sense of like scarce resources, especially when it comes to employers. So there's some like unlearning and some like, hey, we're all on the same team here, we all have the same mission. And one of the roles, hopefully, as we really establish this system of an airport, is that everyone just gets to play their own role. I think so far what I've seen in the space is that everyone in apprenticeship who is really successful has learned to do so many things on their own, which is exhausting. And I'm sure a lot of you are tired. If you're here and you're this passionate about apprenticeship, you're probably pretty tired. And I think we don't have to do all the things alone. So one of the things we're trying to do in SCAN is connect people to where it's an obvious partnership. It's a win-win, both directly and consciously, but also indirectly through our events and programming. So it was a little longer than I anticipated, but that's some of our thoughts.
That's great. Orrian, how about you?
Yeah, in terms of the challenges, I think, yeah, let's see. So I think there's two things that come to mind. One of them is that, this, a majority of the members of the network, it's just their kind of volunteer extracurricular time. And so some weeks, depending on their kind of list of priorities, supporting NCAN through these different commitments they've made is the top of that list, and sometimes it falls to the wayside. And so keeping people engaged, having members show up and kind of follow through with some of their commitments to expanding the network through various activities, I think is one challenge. And then to Alex's last point around, people maybe being a little tired of kind of, hearing the same old story and challenges or whatever. I think we're not like an official organization or entity yet. So a lot of our influence is just kind of confined to the network itself. And so some of it feels like somewhat of an echo chamber. But, the goal is that we can grow it to a point where, leaders in business and the state really lean on us for our insights, our guidance, and, our ability to really streamline some of their processes that are real, trapped in bureaucracy. But it's young, both of the networks are really young. And I think we've made really promising strides and we've got momentum. But the next step is like kind of making some of this work a little more official.
Any questions from the group? I also, Alex and Orrian, if you could talk about kind of how people join, that would be great. Carl, you have something?
Yeah, well, I think you've said it early on, but I think the real problem is trying to get employers interested in SCAN. That's the big thing. So if we know or know of employers, to have them get on your website, contact you folks, that's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Probably to reach out directly. I mean, I'll throw my email in the chat, and I will also throw the website in the chat as well. So we've been thinking about members in our network in two categories, basically, employers and not employers, because with employers, there's almost like a courting process. So you want to make it as easy as possible for them. You want to, streamline things, not necessarily get them involved with like how the sausage is made, with like background registration processes and all this stuff going on. So we do our best to keep them, I don't know, not overwhelmed and burdened with those pieces. So that's why I'll throw my email directly in the chat there.
You guys,
Yeah, the same goes for NCAN as well.
sorry, yourselves as at some point your website being somewhat like a calapprenticeship.org, where there's going to be a big list of employers or programs on your website, so that people could just go there and sign up, or go there and know who to contact. Is that the whole idea?
Do you mean for like job seekers?
Yeah, job seekers or employers that want to let people know that they have jobs with it. And
Yeah, so for a job seeker perspective, I think that's definitely in the roadmap, but that might be like a phase 2 or a phase 3 build out for us, primarily because I think not like to make our website a prominent spot that where job seekers would know to go to rather than other websites is a significant lift. So the shorter term strategy that we're using is partnering with colleges, other training providers, support service providers, community benefit organizations who already have those established relationships with people, who have more of the trusted relationship, rather than just, hey, this website said there's jobs and like free training, which could be a little bit, I don't know, suspicious. So yes, long term, I think we could be a portal. And also for employers to reach out. I mean, I would love to be wrong, but I haven't experienced a lot of employers saying like, hey, I want to know about this whole apprenticeship thing. Like they just come in, like we don't have a lot of warm leads like that. So Orrian, anything to add there?
Yeah, and then I see your hand up, Erwin. Yeah, just in terms of engaging with employers, you can send them to our website. There's a kind of an interest form, and then we'll reach out to them or send them directly to myself, and we'll set up a meeting. We usually do kind of like a triage where we try to understand, like, what are your goals around apprenticeship? Is it just you're trying to learn more, or maybe you have something similar to an apprenticeship that we might be able to, bolster. So there's a lot of different ways that they can enter. But, the whole point of these networks is to engage more employers and grow their participation so that those opportunities then trickle down to the good people looking for work. There's no shortage of job seekers who want apprenticeships. As you know, we had an apprenticeship open for 5 days in January, and we had 500 applications for 9 IT apprenticeships. So it's just, we almost try to steer clear of even talking about apprenticeships to some of our students within Tech SF, just because it's so exciting for them, for good reason. But yeah, anyhow, I see your hand, Erwin.
Yeah, about 23 years ago, I was the manager at the Metropolitan Water District of the group that started the apprenticeship program we had. And I'm sorry I missed the first part of the session, but even back, we were driven by a very simple reason. There weren't enough electrical and mechanical people in the field, in California especially, who had the skills that we needed to have in a water agency. And we were a complicated water agency. So that drove the reason for the apprenticeship program. We actually had a state certified apprenticeship program. And when I was managing the group, I kept asking the person managing the apprenticeship program, why do we need state certification? It seemed like it was unnecessary to me. If the goal of the organization is to build some talent that stays with the organization, the state program certification makes them available to work elsewhere after you've trained them. So there's a lot of disincentives for formal mandated apprenticeship programs. On the other side of it, in the organization, very few people, except on the labor side, talk about apprenticeships. But there's clearly a need everywhere for people who can pre-train people to be able to fulfill work roles of all sorts of work roles. And so I think that's where the need is, and apprenticeship just conveys bureaucracy. So I think a lot of management just doesn't pay attention because I don't need all that. I just need some people that I can find that if somebody can train somebody to be journey level or competent at doing the work I need, and I don't have to do it in my organization because I don't have enough people to do that anyway. I'm busy. That's where the opportunity is to grow this thing.
Thanks,
Super
Erwin.
appreciate it.
Joelle?
Thank you. My question, well, it's not really, well, it's kind of a question. So there's a disconnect. Apprenticeships come with there is a lot of bureaucracy behind it because there's a huge amount of funding coming down the pipe for creating apprenticeships and even youth apprenticeships and pre-apprenticeships so that we can have a earn and learn model for our youth, especially our youth that are underrepresented between 16 and 24. So I propose that when we're talking about apprenticeships, we don't leave out the 16 to 24, that we look at ways of building a pipeline of people who are in a pre-apprenticeship that is designed to, and of course you have to get them all for the funding, they have to be approved by DOS, right? But to have these pre-apprenticeships that build into adult ed and the community colleges that then send them to, and our school, which is a regional occupation training center for high school students primarily, to apprenticeships. But I think everybody at the table needs to understand all of the funding, and what is required for that funding and how we can work together instead of separately in these silos, why the industries probably are frustrated, because every single funding source has a different requirement in reporting and process. And I think that industries kind of run away from us because we come in with all of our, requirements that they could care less about. But if they really understood that we're creating a pipeline of students who are not just on a whim trying to get into an apprenticeship program, the 600 person with only 9 there, but really to show that these are dedicated students getting job experience, on the job paid training that's going to lead them directly at the front of the door into an apprenticeship. And I would hope that we can start kind of building understanding and awareness, whether we want to do like the manufacturing roundtable that we used to do, Mark, a long time ago, and other things, so that our local employers know what we have. But I think as a group, you have to understand what everybody is offering and how we can work together instead of in silos. And unfortunately, I love this conversation, but I have another commitment that I have to leave in about 5 minutes. So.
No worries.
Thanks, Joel.
Yeah, I mean, I think, following up on that, there's kind of a couple of things. It's like, and this overlaps with Erwin's comment as well, is like there's all of this direction from the president, the governor, and other leaders for us to try to get it right around apprenticeship, which also requires buy-in from businesses. And businesses are saying the government needs to put more in, and the government's saying we can't invest in something that isn't validated by data. And the data is completers of registered apprenticeship programs. So companies can build apprenticeships all they want, right, Erwin? And if it's meeting their need, that's great. But that's not going to encourage the government to increase their funding in the model. And I think you're spot on, Joel, in that right now there's this whole master education plan to create some equivalence between traditional education and apprenticeship in the world of work and work-based learning. But again, if the incentives aren't there for employers to be engaged and participate, it's not going to happen. And some of the incentives are just a matter of removing some of the bureaucracy, right? Some of the red tape that says, well, if that's the law, I am not bringing those students into my office, right? And so, there's a lot of, it'll be exciting few months before this master education plan is finalized.
And something else that Erwin noted that I think is really pointed is that he was talking about a very specific use case where they had a really severe need for talent. And I think that is probably where the low-hanging fruit is for apprenticeship, is for us to find roles, industries, companies who have a really strong need for talent. I mean, we've tried to serve companies who are flush with cash and don't have problems with talent, maybe in the tech industry or in other industries, so finding roles like that. Even today, I just saw a presentation by Launch Apprenticeship Network building out an automotive tech apprenticeship program for a group of employers in LA County. I thought they did a fantastic job, and clearly those small businesses are in need of more automotive techs. So I think that is probably some of the wiser places that we could be spending some of our energy, is on companies whose hair are on fire because they need more talent.
Well, the other conversation that I don't hear in discussions about apprenticeships is one of the major competitors to apprenticeships is internships, and that gets lots of people interested. So, I mean, deal with that dilemma when you're thinking about why aren't people running to apprenticeships. Granted, there's money and all of that, but businesses take advantage of a lot of internships. So it's a pre-test, if you will, for hiring people as well.
Thanks, everyone. I've got Carl and then Rick.
Yeah, I think to kind of help Erwin understand a little bit about what is so attractive about apprenticeships and why you would want to have a a state accredited apprenticeship from the maybe from an employer's perspective. It's just a bunch of paperwork. But when you're someone who is trying to find out, they're trying to navigate this whole job landscape. There's a lot of employers that are out there that are going to take advantage of you. In fact, internship is one of the ways they take advantage of people. They have people that they bring on that they don't pay, and they have them work for a while, and then they just get rid of them. And one of the reasons that the government and other organizations are so enamored with apprenticeship is because apprenticeship traditionally was building trades apprenticeships, and they were middle class jobs. There was an earn to learn portion to this, and one of the things that people don't understand is that that you could have a very, very bright student, a bright person that wants that would excel. They could get a scholarship to Yale or Harvard. They get a full ride with all the books paid and all their housing paid. It doesn't matter. They have to provide money to help their parents and their families survive. And so they need to earn money now. And so apprenticeship steps in and they earn while they learn. And the big concern, to be honest with you, for people like me who are with traditional apprenticeships is that there's a lot of bogus apprenticeships out there. And they've had big exposés on what these apprenticeship programs that were just put together just so that they could get government grants, and they didn't fulfill the promises. Unlike, like Joelle's program, which is a fabulous program that's getting students, fired up to get into, all different types of apprenticeships, and it's a legitimate, and she's trying to direct them into legitimate programs. But the state sponsored programs are more the ones that you can trust, and as opposed to just some mom and pop place that decided that they were going to put together an apprenticeship program, and that it's just to exploit employees. It's just another way to exploit employees.
Thanks, Carl. Rick.
Yeah, well, first off, I want to say, I got into this apprenticeship world about October as I was starting a new consulting project with creating coding careers down in San Diego. And I've been just astonished at how welcome, as somebody who's not from workforce or education, but from tech, how welcome I've been in this world, and how much people like Orrian and Alex have been connecting me and creating coding careers to opportunities in this space. I'm really bullish on the space. I mean, I'm focused on tech apprenticeships, so I know that's only a one cross section of the people who are here. But I have also watched tech through a couple of waves of, the dot-com collapse and then the 2008 recession, and tech always tends to come back stronger. And so some of the great programs that existed before I got involved in it, I've been learning about it and reading the literature on how those programs worked. And there's great collateral on why they are better than internships. So some of the points that were being made a few minutes ago. And I'm also working on like the veteran angle and youth. Both I think are really relevant. And the sort of both what the economic opportunity for these people and the transformation that it can provide in their lives is just, it came through loud and clear at Orrian's session. And what I've found, Alex, has introduced us to the people who are writing the recommendations for that career education master plan, and have been able to put me right at the table with those people and working in the Google Doc to make some specific points around the policy investment. And I'm a really big fan of what these guys are trying to do, because they've built good reputations where people are coming to them for expertise. I think collateral that makes very specific points, like why is this an a valuable thing, and how has it been proven? There's this book, Apprentice Nation, that we mentioned and many of you might be familiar with, that Ryan Craig wrote, that speaks just super eloquently about what could happen with tech apprenticeships and how it compares to what's going on in Europe and Australia. And it's all about coming up with ways to do more with high intervention intermediaries that, you know, take on the recruiting, the training, and a bunch of the different aspects. And that's why I started working with Creating Coding Careers, because they really, you know, I've been on tech, I've hired people, and I went from hiring only senior people in large companies to hiring, you know, entry-level people in later in my career. And I got less and less attached, even though I have like a classic, you know, master's in computer science. I got less and less needing of a college degree in terms of, you know, I was looking for getting people from boot camps and from other alternative programs, and finding that they had a lot of the attributes that I was looking for and a lot of the grit that you need to be successful. So I would say that, to me, like, these organizations are good on multiple fronts. They can help us open, like, I happen to care about policy. I'm not doing that as part of my day job, but I'm now able to call on Ryan and call on the guy who's in charge of, you know, Apprenticeships for America, to meet with our congressperson and say, like, what can we do at the national level to bring more funding, or just grease the wheels. And, you know, watching the guy I'm working with, Mike Roberts, who spoke here a few months ago, the way he has learned to navigate to make this really work for tech companies and have the flexibility where it's almost like a contract to hire for them, because he's kind of taking all of that bureaucracy kind of out of their hands and just saying, you know, trust us with what we can do. We can customize this to you. And people, you know, when we able to couple that with actually meeting directly in person, like I had Mike come up here and we went to a very well-known company that, you know, has been working with some intermediaries, but felt too boxed in by that model. And they, like, you know, that face-to-face meeting that almost never happens in post-COVID, but it, like, was massively impactful. And, you know, I got an email last week saying, hey, we've decided we want you to be our exclusive provider. Is that okay? And we're like, yeah, that'll work. And so I really am learning so much from you, from this group, and the collateral that's out there is good, but the other that company, like, to get to that point where they made that phone call, they were like, well, we're into apprenticeships, but we need to convince our upper management. And, you know, having actual case studies of success. And Rokana, the congressperson I wanted to talk to, he was like, what are some successful apprenticeships that have happened here in Silicon Valley that, you know, kind of can trigger that. And so the more we can, even if the success stories are somewhat isolated, just being able to put those in front of people and to change minds, I think, is massively useful. And I think that's where, beyond the introductions, that's where both SCAN and NCAN are really well positioned. And I have huge respect, and I'm eternally grateful that these groups exist.
Great testimonial. Thanks, Rick.
We're going to put that in our advertisement for the SCAN and NCAN. Yeah, no, we're lucky to have you as a part of this movement, Rick, and you know, we really lean on your expertise as well and your background, and yeah, it is about changing hearts and minds to an extent. Yeah.
So just picking up on Rick's point, I mean, I've said that we sort of need a new narrative. That there's an old narrative out there that says that, you know, manufacturing jobs like in autos or steel or even coal mining are the key to economic mobility for a lot of folks. But a lot of those jobs, like it or not, are going away. To what extent is it possible through apprenticeship to develop a new narrative? That Rick's sort of talking about, that we could, you know, this is a way to bring people in where you don't necessarily need the 4-year degree, but once you get into the system, the sky's the limit. Alex, Orrian, you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you know, one of the things I've learned from folks who are pretty good at employer engagement is, one, we don't call them employers, we call them companies, because they don't think of themselves as employers. They think of themselves as companies that offer products and services. And even sometimes we don't use the word apprenticeship. We use sustainable talent pipelines or talent development solutions for them. Because apprenticeship, that word, they might have connotations about it, or it might sound bureaucratic and heavy, but a talent development solution is a term that is accurate, but also just describes more how it solves their problem. So I agree with Orrian. There might be some rebranding there. Yeah, so that's an initial thought.
Great.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with everything Alex said. And yeah, a lot of it is messaging, but I think it's also on the business, the company side of things, it's providing options, because, you know, there are a lot of different intermediaries out there, and they, you know, as long as they're, you know, good at registered apprenticeship and it meets all of the quality and rigor that's required by the government, like their models are going to be somewhat similar in terms of the results and the outputs, but they can look a lot different in terms of, you know, who you're apprenticing. Some of them require a lot more training on the front end and the occupations and this or that. And so within the networks, we want to democratize the information that's going to those companies, right? So you're not getting pitched every other day by a different apprenticeship intermediary. Let's be the clearinghouse for all of that information. We will be very honest with you about our assessment of your company and who we think you should partner with. And then it's up to you. But we don't want you to get sold into anything that might not be a great fit for you. So I think a lot of it is about, you know, sharing information. Maybe it is some rebranding as well, but just being very transparent with, like, these are the requirements of a registered apprenticeship. These are all of your options out there for instruction. These are all of your options for intermediaries. And, you know, Joelle mentioned this earlier, but like, these are all of your options for incentives that exist right now. They might not exist next year because a lot of them are grant-based, but, you know, we will kind of sort through that mess for you.
Thanks, Orrian. Temple.
Okay, my comment is this, is that you have to sell an apprenticeship nowadays, and in everything you're very competitive, okay? But the three main questions that you need to have them ask is, and you have to answer is how is it better? How is it cheaper? How is it faster for you? And bring up that case for whomever you're pitching the pitch to have the apprenticeship, okay? When you can do that, and they have the money and they have the incentive to do that, that knocks down most of the wall. And that's the reason why that's the reason why companies look for apprenticeships, okay? It's not because they're so nice and they want to help everyone. They want to save money and be more efficient and make more money, okay? So that's my pitch, is that how are you more competitively better, cheaper, and faster than if they put feelers out and say, okay, we have this position and you and 200 other software engineers can now apply for it, you know? So anyways, that's my feedback. Okay.
Thanks, Temple. I wanted to point out to the chat where Mark put some data in. Mark, do you want to elaborate on
that? Yeah. So I had gotten some data. It's been a few months from DAS around their apprenticeship programs. Just, you know, I'm focused on manufacturing and kind of wanted to understand what programs are out there. So I got the data and I just put it in this Looker Studio, and I can, if you want me to, I could share it and show it to people if they can't pull it up. But anyway, it's there. It seems pretty complete. Although again, it hadn't had the more recent stuff. One thing that I couldn't get is there's some of the programs had which counties they're in with the information, and others I don't have the county, so that is not complete. But otherwise, it's just, I wanted something that was a little easier to search than what DAS has put out, and DAS didn't have some of the information that I was looking for, particularly on how I could break it down. So hopefully this can be useful for others. I'm hoping that they might, update their stuff to include kind of all the data they have. I'm not sure they should be able to do that. This is relatively easy in Looker Studio. So yeah, for your use as you see fit.
What you just pulled up is from the Bay Area Community College Consortium. John Dunn is working on putting this together, and they've actually expanded on it quite a bit, or they intend on expanding it.
Well, yeah, you can look and compare, and I've talked with John. I worked quite closely with John, and I talked to the organization. I mean, the data that I have is the data that they have. And so theirs might be organized a little bit better or something. You can look at both and decide, but I had put this together before they had released theirs a few months ago. I've been working on it for a little while, for a few months. So anyway, but this should be the most, they do have some other types of data that they're going out to try to look there. I think they're looking at more. They're also trying to gather information on the colleges and why am I blanking on what LEAs, which organizations are doing the training and stuff that DAS does not have easily available. And I think that's one of the things that John and the others were looking at adding. Okay.
Thanks for sharing, Mark. That's great. Alex, just for kind of closing up, we've talked a lot about getting to employers and to companies and the right messaging. But you've talked about we want to reach out to folks throughout our communities, a lot of whom are not connected to the economic mainstream, or not hearing about don't get a big menu of job options. So what are some of the things, talk about some success stories you've had in reaching out to the disconnected communities, and who are some of your key partners in accomplishing that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's no secret that we have a lot of people who are in our communities who are disconnected from economic opportunity, and our at least short and medium term strategy has been to partner with community benefit organizations, public service agencies, and other support service providers who already have relationships and trust built with those communities, and are already serving them in some ways, and to connect them with apprenticeship programs. So we have, for instance, PATH, People Assisting the Homeless. They're pretty present throughout a lot of California. They've been connected to a couple of apprenticeship programs and had their clients connected who are ready for job opportunities connected to apprenticeship opportunities. So we actually, as part of our Irvine grant, have some funding to outreach to CBOs and public service agencies to let them know that this is even an opportunity and this exists. So I think from SCAN's perspective at this point, our role is more getting the organizations connected so that the individuals that they're serving are able to get access to these opportunities. I think in the same way that we're not yet trying to be a clearinghouse for job seekers to come through us, we are not looking to be, reaching out directly to marginalized communities or hard to reach communities. I think that's not like our area of expertise, but for a number of organizations in our community, it is. And there's a lot of partnerships that can be built where they're funded or grant funded to have certain outcomes, and these organizations over here are funded to have certain outcomes, and those are actually really complementary. So we're doing our best to set up as many complementary partnerships like that as possible.
Great. And do the CBOs help with messaging? They're hearing what the advantages of apprenticeship and advantages of the network, and they're doing the translation, if you will. Yeah,
at the end of the day, they're just sharing that, hey, there's a job opportunity where you get training and and like I think we mentioned maybe on this call or earlier in the conversation, DAS approved apprenticeship programs provide tuition waivers at community colleges. So there's a lot of incentive to go through apprenticeship programs for folks who don't have access to traditional education pathways or other resources like that. So it has been primarily the CBO doing that messaging, and it's something we can help with, but they know how to speak well to their audience and to their client base.
Well, this seems strategic on your part. Thank you. Deborah, last question. Go ahead.
Deborah, you're on mute in case you're
Got it. See, I was listening to you. I was on mute. Yeah, just to kind of collaborate on few of the things that have been said. One, the new narrative. I think what I believe it was it Erwin, I believe, was talking about the endorsements that are needed. I think that's key. Any company that has already used apprenticeship, hopefully in various sectors, to get an endorsement that we can put on our sites that we can use when we're doing collateral. I think that is absolutely strategy number one, because we all know that peers compete with peers, just as was said. And that's one way to do it. And to answer the exact issues that you mentioned, that Temple mentioned, I'm sorry, that was better, cheaper, faster, more efficient. I absolutely agree with you. And I know that we have a committee in NCAN, I believe, that's working on some collateral. Am I correct, Alex? On that messaging?
Yeah, both to employers and to other groups. Yeah.
Okay. And then the other part is reaching these disconnected communities. That's one of the reasons that we really have done that reach to CBOs. And another example along with PATH is Department of Rehab. They have a ton of money, and the way they classify disabled is fairly loose. So we are starting to build a collaboration with them because number one, they have clients. Number two, and same with other CBOs, they have people on their advisory boards, and that's what we need. Obviously, you can't have an apprenticeship without an employer. So we need both ends of that stick, if you will, where we can help provide that intermediary service and be the hub to connect the entities. So I think these are all very valid points in what, the South Bay WIB hopes to be doing in conjunction with everybody.
Thank you, Deborah. Great work. Thank you for your collaborative work. Just want to call your attention to the chat where Rick has put some information in responding to Temple's points. I want to make sure folks see that. Okay, well, thank you very much, Alex and Orrian. That was fabulous, and thank you for your being candid. We appreciate that. And keep up the great work. It sounds like you're really moving along well, and we hope to have you back sometime to hear more great success stories. So really appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for having us, and great to spend some time with you all and see some familiar faces too. So yeah, happy to support however we can.
Yeah, thank you. So we'll be sending out a video recording of the meeting and a brief survey, and that'll come out. Anita Gay, our other co-lead, is on, I think she's on vacation or traveling. So that will maybe come out sometime next week. So look for that. Our next meeting will be on Wednesday, the 24th at 4:30. We're always on the fourth Wednesday. And we should be back in touch within 2 or 3 weeks with some information about our next meeting topic. But today's meeting gave me some great inspiration for next time. So thank you all for that. And hope everyone has a great weekend, great evening, and thanks for joining. Take care.
Thank you, Luther.
You're welcome.
Thanks, everyone.